I'm Johnny Hollander.
I'm Nick Mason.
And I'm Eric Hayden.
And this is Neon Static.
Welcome to episode 5 of Neon Static. We are back. And we're here. We're tonight. We are tonight. We are the night. Guys.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Batman games. I am the night.
I'm the night.
I'm vengeance. Anyway.
Great to be here, guys.
Yeah, it's good to be here too. It is also good to be here. We have been having a silly old time in the green room, as it were. And we're in a chipper mood tonight. We hope you are going to enjoy us talking at your faces.
Flawless. Just flawless. No notes.
No notes. Gentlemen, hear me out. Let's just jack right into Anonymous Tip. I'm noticing an unfortunate interaction between the word tip and Jack.
God.
But let's just ignore it and we'll move right along. We got a lot of really positive feedback from everybody. We appreciate all of the kind words that were sent away after our last episode. A lot of people saying that they like the podcast. And we appreciate you. Let's say that. And we won't go through we won't read everybody's responses to them saying they like our podcast. Sanjay on Discord said, a feature I really love in Neon Static is the weird rules interaction of the episode. I forget what that feature is actually called. That is called spec work, by the way. And I'm going to play so many Ravana's now. So the infinite Ravana loop is real.
Yep. It's out there, people.
It is.
We got added to Danby's Near Earth Hub page for content creators. So both our podcast and the video page, which now has 2 new videos since the last time we spoke. Is that
you're jumping the gun? That's 24 news.
Oh yeah,
Oh God,
way to ruin the 24/7 news cycle.
I didn't scroll down.
Quick, everyone.
Hey, so we have some exciting news. We have new videos up on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
2 of them.
New news that no one has heard before.
Breaking news.
Breaking.
And now for some real news.
No, hold on. Let's talk about that real quick. We are putting in a little bit of effort to try and make as good as we can, commentated videos of Netrunner being played live. Sometimes I guess maybe we may at some point do JNet videos, but for a couple of the tournaments that we were at, we recorded with my iPhone a couple of games, the top tables, and then I resurrected Doge Pong's really cool graphic overlay card thing, and I've forked that GitHub repo for anyone who I'm not speaking in tongues to. Go check out GitHub. I'll put a link in the show notes of the code base that I have moderately changed. I'm trying to bring it up to 2023 standards working. Because if you clone it right now, it doesn't do anything. And I wrote a little script to go get the card images for you and stuff like that. So I'm going to make a video at some point in the future. And here's me promising to do this. I'm going to make a video explaining how to get the tool and how to use it. If you want to use the card overlay tool that you see in our videos, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out one of our videos on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to see the cards flying in and out on the side. That's done not in post-processing. That is done live as we sit there and talk. So the tool that we used to do this was built by this person, Dogepong, who ran Peach Hack in the past. And if they are listening, hi, I love your stuff. You're the best. Anyway, I'm done. Okay.
All right, cool.
Shall we talk about Eastern Nationals?
Yes.
Yeah, so tickets just went on sale.
Yeah.
I think it's like $20, $30.
$30.
$30.
I'm hype. I'm extremely hype.
And there's I think it's 100-person maximum. So like, get your tickets now.
Yes,
because there's a lot of people getting into Netrunner. It might actually sell out.
FOMO.
Mm-hmm. I've heard there are people coming from Canada. There's a lot. There's a lot that's going to happen. It's going to be a big tournament. It's going to be awesome. You should be there. You could be there. if you just
listener,
went and ordered the tickets, which I'm sure we can drop the link in the show notes.
We have the technology for that. Yes.
Excellent.
Confirmed.
I love it.
Let me wait. Hold on. Let me check. Yes, we can do that.
Excellent. Good. We can link things. Anyway.
I bought my ticket. Nick bought his. Johnny, did you buy yours?
I did. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
We're all going.
Yes.
We made the cut.
We're in. Right? The only thing I have to buy
I still
now
don't know
is,
if I'm going to be playing in the tournament, though.
why not?
There is a small chance that I may be helping out with some of the live commentating.
That sounds significantly less fun than playing Netrunner all day. So you do that. That's all you.
Well, Nick, it's with Code Marvelous, who's like awesome and an expert at the game. And I initially was like, I don't know. I'm kind of like not as familiar with the card pool. It might be weird. And Dan thinks it'd be cool to have somebody newer asking questions. And like, he's obviously super experienced. And Eric just put together that cool tool, card tool. So like, there's a chance. We'll see. I'm thinking about it. Eric's thinking about it. He's probably less likely to say yes than I am. But
yeah,
there's a possibility that
I'm going to Sling Cardboard.
one of us will be helping. I will get many games in whether I play in the tournament or not.
It's fair.
It's true.
So. Anyways, I think that's all the news we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now it is time to debut a brand new shiny segment that we have never before shown the world.
Welcome to the Jank Bank.
All right, the Jank Bank. Also an extremely mature title. I must give credit where credit is due. This is a riff on Shipment from Shiloh's fantastic Jank Tank section.
Shamelessly ripped off.
Although the name came to me in a dream, and then I was like, wait a second, didn't Graham do this kind of thing? And I went and checked it. And yes, he has an occasional Jank Tank. In the Jank Bank.
We had some deposits.
We're going to make some deposits in the Jank Bank. And
no, we got some deposits from listeners.
We did. We put a call out today. So the idea of the segment is highlight a deck that is janky and fun and talk about it. And I asked the Discord community in general today, said, share your fun jank. The weirder and more funner, the better. And I got some answers back. We are not going to read everybody's stuff. We're going to pick one and discuss it. If you sent me a deck list and we're not discussing it yet, don't worry. It's in the bank, guys and gals. And other
is it worth saying,
genders.
like explaining what jank is?
Yeah, Nick is the person most suited to do that. Nick, go.
Yeah, I think jank is stuff that probably needs a little more support to work, or more support than is viable, but is really cool when you pull it off. So you know,
high roll.
Yeah, any like big combo or something that relies on a high roll can be janky. The key is that it could be good. It could win games if it had like a little more support. That I think is the big thing. You're not just like playing like every card with, that starts with the letter W. That's not really janky. It's just weird. But jank is something that is technically functional as a deck, could be better, but is mostly just out there and off meta and weird.
Mm-hmm. I got to say, I was going through merely seconds ago going, which of the decks do we talk about? And I guess we're going to talk about this. This is published by Cold Lava, and I will put a link of both of the versions of this deck in the show notes, and I'm going to read it out to Johnny and Nick. They haven't really reviewed this. I don't think that they have seen this either at all. So this one was published to Netrunner DV. How many agendas? How many agendas does it take to win a game of Netrunner? And if you haven't seen this, there's the slaps head of the car meme, slaps runner score area. This bad boy can fit so many agendas in it.
I
meme.
think I played this deck.
Yeah, I think you did too. It's the Arella Salvatore Sansan sports medal monstrosity.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about this. But then more importantly, we're going to talk about the earlier version of the deck that Cold Lava sent that is even jankier, the older, jankier version. So
I was going to bring this to Mansion Runner, and you guys talked me out of it, saying to play the The non-janky version of sports metal.
It kind of works, but the fact that it relies on a 5-card combo in a game with a 5-card hand limit it's a lot to ask.
What's the 5 cards? What do you mean 5 cards?
So you need an agenda.
Hold on. Let's talk about it real quick.
Okay.
So the deck mostly hinges around Arella Salvator, which is a 2-cost upgrade, sysop, unique. Whenever an agenda is scored from this server, you may install a card from HQ, ignoring all costs, and then place 1 advancement token on it. And it's 5 to trash. So the idea is you put Arella down in your scoring remote, you score an agenda, and then a new one gets plopped in, and you then are off to the races already with 1 advancement of the next one.
Yep.
That, in combination with Sansan City Grid, which is most of us probably are familiar with, is the upgrade region that each agenda in the root of the server gets -1 advancement requirement. Sports Metal also is running 3 Elvigar bifurcations, which is a 2-1 agenda. It's a 2-1. It also has Hyperloop extensions, which are 3-1s, and Luminal Transubstantiation, which is a 3-2, and Mega Pre-Qualifiers, which are 3-1s. Monological Dependences, if you can get a core damage, which are then 3 to advance. A lot of, and then Project Vitruvius, a ton of 3 to advance agendas.
So, okay. The big thing is you want the runner to steal a bunch of your agendas because you're also playing Fast Break.
Yes.
And Fast Break is where this all really starts to sing. So if the runner gets up to a certain number of agendas and...
Quick, what's Fast Break?
Oh, Fast Break. It's a 4-cost operation, which is gain X credits, draw up to X cards, install up to X cards in the root of and or protecting a single remote server. X is equal to the number of agendas in the runner's score area. So what you want to do is, typical sports metal thing, right? You feed them a bunch of little agendas. Those stack up over time, and then you use Fast Break to have a wild combo turn. So when I played it, I had Fast Break, Arella, Sansan, and an agenda, and I think one other thing in my hand, and I was able to install Arella, Sansan, and the agenda for 1 action.
On the Fast Break.
Yep. Drew 4 cards, which got me to another agenda. So I then advanced my agenda that was out there once, allowing me to score it, which let me put down an Elvigar bifurcation with Arella Salvator. So now it has 1 advancement token on it.
And it's a 1-1.
That's scoreable. Yeah, exactly. Because of
Sansan.
So right. Then you just keep drawing cards with sports metal because every time you score or have an agenda stolen, you can draw cards. And you just kind of pop off for like 4 or 5 points in 1 instant off of basically just playing this Fast Break and like advancing once on top of that.
Right. And because you never have to actually protect a remote server, you don't need much ice because you just protect your centrals.
Yeah.
And that's it.
You just need to protect HQ really. Because once you start getting the combo pieces in hand, it can get pretty dicey if they just get through and trash your Arellas, or although both Arella and Sansan are 5 to trash, which is a pretty big cost, especially to do it from HQ. So
yeah, I mean, I think you want to probably maybe it depends on the running you're up against, but you probably want to ice up R&D as well.
That's true. Yeah.
So Cold Lava sent me. Actually, I'll just read this. Actually, sorry to bother you again, but this is the older, jankier version of that deck. It puts upgrades, Sansan, Arella, with a Triste and a Mavirus behind a Loki to make the Loki unbreakable until you get the full server. So we'll slow down. Hold on a second. So Triste model Bioroids is a 2-cost asset, Bioroid. When you res this asset, choose 1 res piece of Bioroid ice. Runner card abilities cannot break subroutines on that chosen ice, and it's 3 to trash. So they will put the upgrades and a Triste into, and a Mavirus. Mavirus is an upgrade, ambush, 3 to res. When the runner accesses this upgrade, you may purge virus counters. If the upgrade is res, do 1 net damage. You might be wondering, why is that in there? So they put those things in the remote server behind a Loki to make the Loki unbreakable. Now, the Loki is a Bioroid unique ice, strength 3, Bioroid. When the runner encounters Loki, choose another res piece of ice. Until the end of the run, Loki gains the subtypes of that ice and the subroutines of that ice before all Loki's other subroutines. And it has one sub end the run unless the runner shuffles his or her grip into the stack. So it puts a Loki.
Where you're going with this?
Yeah, you see.
Oh my!
So
God.
you put the Loki in the server with the Mavirus behind it, and you put the tree stay in there so they can't break the sub. So if they want to get through, they got to shuffle their hand back into their stack, and then when they access the Mavirus has, when the runner accesses it, do 1 net damage.
Kills them. Couldn't you do this cheaper with Mr. Hendrick?
No, because they could, if they didn't run anything but last click, they could just do that.
I thought Mr. Hendrick was, it deals a core damage. They can prevent it by losing all their clicks, right?
So Mr. Hendrick made it into the second level, the second version of the deck, but it is when the runner accesses this upgrade while it is installed, you may pay 2 credits to do 1 core damage. If the runner has any clicks remaining, they may lose all of their clicks to prevent this damage.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So if they run with any clicks, then the Hendrick doesn't work unless you have 2 of them, and then you're getting into, might as well just run Mavirus. Seems better.
Right. So Cold Lava says the Mavirus is important because Loki might not end the run, but it will force the runner to shuffle their hand anyway. If they decide to access anyway, you res the Mavirus for 1 net damage and get the kill.
Wow.
So that's the earlier version of the how many agendas does it take to win a game of Netrunner deck. And it was called Sports 2+5. I don't get why 2+5.
Because you
You
scored.
have to score 1 2-pointer and then 5 points in a turn.
Nice.
Yeah, off the combo. Yeah.
Neat.
I love it.
Other things featured in this deck are Bass Churaboga, 2 of those, 2 fast break, 3 red level clearance, which is just a good card.
Mm-hmm.
Loki, Gatekeeper, Fairchild, Hagen. Hagen. Yeah.
Hagen is so good.
2 drafters. And then a bunch of those agendas, 14 of them.
I played, well, I guess we'll talk about the tournament in another segment. I was going to say I just played a sports medal.
Yeah, let's
We'll talk about it later.
do that now, in fact.
I guess that's a good segue into accelerated beta test. All right, so this is where we talk about what we've been playing lately. Eric, you want to kick it off?
Sure. So the 3 of us went down to Mansion Runner. That was hosted by, actually, depending on release order, you may have already heard about it, or you may hear about it in the next episode. I'm not sure which one we're going to release first. We recorded an episode down there. Anyway, Dan B, who is an NSG person and also a non-NSG person at the same time sometimes. I don't know. He made a point to have distinctions between his NSG personality and his non-NSG personality.
He wears many hats, all of them looking like that one Mr. Bass guy.
Bass Trip.
There you go. That's the name.
Nice. Yeah, Dan organized a weekend mansion. He rented a mansion, basically a villa, and a lot of people came and played Netrunner, and he set up a draft. And we did a big Netrunner draft, Bushi's Wild Ride. It was quite wild. There were cards. There were cards that were not
Pokemon.
from Netrunner featured in the draft.
I very nearly built a deck around a Harry Potter identity, but instead I decided to go with playing a resource as my ID. Makes way more sense.
I also used. I also almost had a Harry Potter. Who was it? What's his name? Big beardy giant man.
Hagrid.
Hagrid was also almost my ID.
I didn't actually see any non-Netrunner IDs, but I did get some Pokemon cards into my deck.
Yeah.
They were just good.
All of the cards functionally worked with the game. They were like, whenever your opponent draws a card, draw 2 cards and get $1 or whatever. And so there was some interpretation that needed to happen, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like some of them were just like straightforwardly insane. Like there was is it Misty, I think, from Pokemon, which is like draw 7 cards and put 2 of them into your hand or something.
Oh, I played against that. That one was awful. I mean, it was great. It was a good card.
Yes. But insane.
Mine wasn't quite as good. Mine was like it was like a search your deck for cards thing. It was still good.
Tudor, pretty good.
Did your draft decks like actually function very well, guys?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Yeah, Johnny's got. Yeah.
I actually built. I built an Atom deck, which was like not very creative, and it was decent. I played both decks twice, and I won and lost once with each deck. But my corporation deck was the one that I was more proud of, and that was a Harpsichord deck, which Harpsichord is a corporation ID that only allows the runner to steal one agenda. Is it per turn or per run?
I believe it's
one per turn.
Per turn. So I built a deck with that, and I put a card called Wanza City Grid, which is
amazing, is what it is.
Install in the root of HQ or R&D only. Whenever the runner breaches the server, they access 3 additional cards. When the breach end, gains 2 credits for each time the runner accessed a card during that breach. So I put that behind R&D, and the person I was playing against kept running R&D. I did get lucky. They weren't actually accessing a lot of agendas, but they were accessing 4 cards per run. I was getting 8 credits per run. I, at one point, had over 60 credits. And and I put Big Deal in, which is a 17 cost operation that allows you to do 4 advancement counters at one time, I believe. Is that what it does?
Yeah, 4 advancement and score.
Yep.
So I actually used that to score out a 3-1. But the goal was I just had so much money.
17 money for 1 click of efficiency. I love it.
That's just bad manners is what that is.
Right. The goal was to score out Vanity Project, which is a blank 6/4. Well, there's lots of stuff on it, but it's all flavor text. And I did end up scoring a Vanity Project, but not with Big Deal, which was, I had to play the Big Deal, and you're right, it was rude. I played it to score out a 3-1. But that was a fun deck. I don't think that deck would do very well in the long run, but it was fun to play it. And actually, it was neat because Dan was handing out prizes for the most creative deck, and unbeknownst to me, also for like just putting something weird in your deck. And he came by and saw I was playing Vanity Project and handed me a set of Slowpoke Spin Doctors, which are pretty cool.
Styled in Pokemon card fashion.
Yeah. So that was my experience in the draft. I had fun with the draft, but it took a lot longer than I thought it would to like draft all the cards and then build the decks. I felt a little overwhelmed. Like it started to come together, and like I built things that were functional. But when we finished the draft and started building, I was like pretty overwhelmed. I was like, I don't know how to put a deck together on the spot without making like everyone wait for hours for me to get this done. But I ultimately ended up having a really fun time with it once I got past the being overwhelmed.
I had fun, but I also, my Netrunner per hour meter was dipping on the low side because it did take a while to draft, but it was a fun experience. I appreciate Dan putting that whole thing together. And if drafting is your boat, then I would try this kind of thing. I think that Dan is trying to formalize and or publish or share. I don't know how, if you have access to all the Pokemon cards and the Harry Potter cards, how you would put it together exactly. But it was a cool format. It was a hypercube. So you drew sets of 3 of everything. So.
And original Netrunner cards.
OG. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Old
school.
Old runner.
Yeah, it was, but it must have taken a lot of work to put that together, because one thing that I didn't realize until we got far enough into passing the cards was that he organized them at the table so that you were guaranteed, if you started drafting a particular subtype, you would see cards that would actually go well with it. And I didn't know that until it was kind of too late to start doing some of the jankier things. Like, I thought, oh, this card's not going to work because I'm probably not going to see cards that are going to actually work with it. And Dan really put a lot of thought into the order that everything came out in the draft.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually ended up drafting like almost all of the stealth stuff, except for the good stealth ID, of course. But I got like 2/3 of the way through the draft and had not seen anything that gave me credits. All I had was payoffs for stealth and nothing to actually be stealth and set up the payoffs. And it was stressful, but then the last pack bailed me out. So
yeah, my drafted decks were Valencia with blackmail. That I got blackmail. You guys know Valencia or no?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Valencia Estevez is an Anarch ID 50 card Anarch D, and her ability is the corpse starts the game with 1 bad publicity. She was sort of the de facto Anarch, like good stuff ID to play for a while, her and Max. And when she came out, it's called Blackmail. Where is it?
Wasn't there a world champ that played? Like, didn't Valencia win one of the world championships?
You are asking questions to which I do not know the answer.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't remember Val ever winning a Worlds, but I don't know. Maybe. There's a card called Blackmail, which is a 1-cost event run. Play only if the corp has at least one bad publicity. Guess what they do, probably with Val. Make a run. The corp cannot res ice for the duration of this run. And I got that card in the deck, which I was like, okay, well, I'll win all my games now because I have 3 copies of Blackmail and I have Val, and I didn't win any games with my drafting deck because none of them had any money. And the other one was an Isuak deck that just also didn't have any money. Literally 2 copies of Sure Gamble and then 3 copies of Commercialization. And it is a card that says choose a piece of ice, gain 1 credit for each advancement token on that ice, and it costs nothing. So I had like 6 copies of ice that could be advanced, and I spent money advancing them so that I could use Commercialization to get the money back. That was my econ. It was terrible.
The deck I built was Page Piper, actually, which is a resource, but I used it as an ID for a runner deck. Page's ability is the first time you install a card each turn, including Page Piper, which doesn't count because you don't install IDs. But anyway, you may search your stack for any number of copies of that card and add them to your heap. Shuffle your stack. So I was using it initially when I drafted it. I was like, oh, I'll get all the bin breakers. This will be great. And I didn't think about you had to install them, and then they don't really do anything if they're in your heap. But also just like, I'm just going to run 3 of everything. And if I don't want it, I'll just bin it with the ID.
Extreme card filtering.
Didn't work. Yes. It turned out it was very bad. But I do think that is partially because I also decided to go really hard into the stealth cards and also put no other money in the deck. So it's a not recommended. Money, good.
I looked up a thing. So the 2015 World Championship runner deck was Valencia.
Oh,
there you go.
Old and moldy.
Yeah.
Wow.
2015. I mean, come on. It's 8 years ago. It's quite a while.
Oh, God.
Following the draft event, there was a standard tournament, and we all played decks of cards that were Netrunner cards. And I played the outfit. I played Silly Modernism. Pretty much card for, actually, no, not exactly card for card. And that deck is fun. The outfit is rich and wild and fast. I had, in testing games, like I played 2 games before we played. I think 1 with this deck and 1 with each of 2 runner decks I wasn't sure about playing. And I had 6 pad pub up against, I played Ysengrin. I played Jeff one of the games, and I was like, man, maybe 6 bad pub is too much because he was like running for free, getting through crazy ice
every single time. Yeah,
I mean, he's getting through bulwarks and Afshars and Mausolus and trebuchets, and he's like, yeah, this is all just nothing because you are giving me 6 credits every single time I run.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, it was still kind of a close game, but yeah, that was fun. I like the outfit. I won a game with the outfit, so that was cool. And then I played Smoke. I played a fairly basic Smoke deck. That was a lot of fun.
I played a Sports Metal deck, which I net decked that morning. I had never played Sports Metal or most of the cards in the deck. But it went really well for me. I I ended up playing that deck 4 times that day, 3 times in the tournament, and I won. It went 4-0. And for the runner, I played an Atom deck, Atom's Happy Little Tree, which another net deck. I did not pilot it correctly, and I knew I didn't. I know how it's supposed to play, but just the cards that were coming up, it wasn't working out the way the deck was designed. But the cards in it are just all very good cards, so it didn't end up mattering. You can make lemonade out of. I mean, I don't even want to say lemonade out of lemons because they're not really lemons. I don't know what the right analogy for that is.
It's delicious oranges, and you're turning it into also delicious orange juice.
Yeah, I mean, you have cards like Logic Bomb, which is just get through any ice. Brain Chip, which once you've gotten an agenda or two is just incredible. You can install anything. Brain Chip is memory increase by X. X is the number of agenda points you have, and also what's the other thing that it does? It's memory and something.
Hand size.
And hand size, right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really good. And we'll be rotating soon. So, yeah, I had a really good time. I went, I'm gonna brag a little bit. I went 5-1 in the tournament. I was teamed up with Nick. We called our team the upper 2/3 of Neon Static.
Which statistically turned out to be correct.
That's true. And and we ended up coming in 3rd overall, which was pretty cool because I generally don't consider myself to be, I say competitive. I'm a very competitive person, but I don't consider myself competitive in Netrunner, and meaning I feel like I'm a average to below average player.
You don't feel strong.
And speaking of average to below average players, I went 2-4 with, I had a Heartbeat Hoshiko deck, which was actually a lot of fun. It installs a whole bunch of little things that you can then trash to not die when you're running with like Banghar and stuff like that. And then I also played kind of a bog standard PE deck, which has convinced me
it's not bog standard. No. I don't. Most PE decks are not install, repeat.
Oh, really? Maybe I'm just playing it bad. It was definitely a net deck PE deck that was just. I had a lot of assets and stuff. I just installed them. Whatever.
It's like asset hell PE, where you put down lots of 4 or 3 to trash things and Reaper functions hidden in there, and then eventually the runner just runs into the wrong thing, and then on your turn you res the Reaper functions and kill them.
Basically, yeah, it wasn't the most engaging gameplay, but I did find out that PE, like that style of PE deck versus specifically Apex, is actually a really fun game because instead of just like hoping that the opponent gets low on cards in hand, that you are like kind of trying to force them into trashing all of their stuff that's out at a time. Apex uses Heartbeat, which is Apex's console, which is trash an installed card to prevent any one damage. So basically, instead of discarding cards, my opponent was able to just like trash a bunch of face down useless assets, and it made it a lot more strategic to play against. I don't know. It was way more interesting than just the normal. My opponent is going to sit there and draw after every run because I just made them take 3 or 4 net damage.
I didn't
kind of thing.
Despite the whole idea of the tournament being able to like help each other make decisions and everything, I was so focused on my own games, I didn't really get to see much of what happened in your games. But if I recall correctly, your opponent sat down and said, "Oh, you're playing PE. I'm sorry."
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh no, there's an auto loss," and you won.
I proceeded to win that game, so it was pretty good. The other good moment was I was playing into an NBN deck, and I was running Banghar in the Hoshiko deck. So the Banghar, a card we've talked about before, that basically turns the first ice you encounter, all of its subroutines become deal 1 net damage. So you can just get through stuff as long as you have enough cards in hand. Well, I ran into, and my opponent rezzed, the Endless Eula, which has 6 subs on it, all of which are end the run unless the runner loses a credit. And my opponent was like, great, you have 5 cards in hand. That's going to be 6 net damage. And I was like, well, why don't we just do the net damage one by one? And the sadness when he realized that I had multiple steel skins in hand and thus was not dead at all was just delicious.
Did you also run Raindrops Cut Stone on that run?
No, I should have. That would have been like the perfect kicker to that was
here's my 18 card hand at the end of this run.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. But
There's an Obi-Wan Kenobi reference in there. Strike me down, you can only make me stronger, etc.
Yes, exactly. Deal net damage to me.
So
is that Obi-Wan? Yeah, that is Obi. For some reason, I thought that was the Emperor. But anyway, let's pretend that I'm not thinking about Star Wars.
We'll cut that, Nick.
For your pride.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, we won't.
Well, we know this is like the Star Wars microphone something else podcast.
Yeah.
Now we're doing programming, talking about GitHub forks.
God, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And yet somehow people appreciate that when we actually talk about Netrunner.
Fools.
I do want to mention before we move off of Mansion Runner stuff that Dan B's old friend Tyler was playing as the bartender there. He showed up. He played board games because they were playing, all weekend they were playing other games. And Tyler, I guess, is in a game group with Dan, but doesn't really play a ton of Netrunner. Plays some, but I was chatting with Tyler and he didn't play in the tournament, and he was like dressed very nicely and had a whole bar set up and was mixing drinks for everybody the whole time. It was awesome. And Tyler had a spin on the rum runner that he was making for people, and it was called the Netrunner. And I got the recipe from him, and I'm going to share it with the world. It will be in the show notes. But I'll read it. It's called the Netrunner, and it's 1 ounce of bourbon whiskey, a 1/2 ounce of butterscotch liqueur, a 1/2 ounce of banana liqueur, 3/4 of an ounce of orange juice, 1/2 ounce of lime juice, and a teaspoon of maple syrup. Shake over ice, pour open into a rocks glass. And it was so nice. I gotta say, it sounds a little funny with like banana and butterscotch and orange and lime, but it was really good. I highly recommend it. So
yeah, I didn't try it. I didn't know I had a beer earlier and I wasn't drinking much.
Yeah,
didn't stop by the bar to check it out.
Yeah,
I actually forgot that I had taken, before we move off of this topic, I know we're getting long, but I forgot that I had taken some notes because I had some pretty exciting moments in my games. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of them real quick. So they mostly occurred when I was on the corp side for whatever reason. They were all really tight games, and I found just how incredible Gatekeeper is. So for anyone that doesn't know what Gatekeeper is, it is ice. It's a 3 to res. What?
It is ice.
I was looking it up while I was trying to.
Go ahead.
So it's 3 to res, 0 strength, and it says Gatekeeper has +6 strength if you resed it this turn. And it's got 2 subroutines, one of which is, and then the run. The important part is the +6 strength. So I ended up, the runner just had so much money, and I ended up putting 2 Gatekeepers on the same remote server and putting the last agenda that I needed to score to win. He ended up being just 1 credit short of being able to break both Gatekeepers. Doesn't sound that exciting retelling the story, but it was a very tense moment, and it was awesome to see his face. It was Lucas, and it was just a really cool feeling to have him be like just bowling over everything I had on the board, and he got through the first Gatekeeper, continued on, and then just like the womp womp when I flipped over the second one. It was very satisfying. But the most exciting thing I think that happened was, and Nick actually witnessed this, was in a game against Charlotte. She was playing, what's the one that can spend virus counters to trash things?
Freedom. Kamala.
Freedom. And Amakua, which is the turtle. So that one gets virus counters when it doesn't hit agendas when accessing cards, and each virus counter gives it +1 strength. It starts as a 0 strength or 1 strength, something
It starts
like that.
as 0, and it gets the virus counter when you access a card and you don't trash it or steal it.
Oh, don't trash or steal. Okay. So I scored an agenda on the previous turn with an Audacity, and Audacity is trash your entire hand and then place 2 advancement tokens on up to 2 cards. So I used an Audacity to score out Project Vitruvius, and I ended up having to trash multiple agendas to do it. And I had a 3-1 on the table that had been there since turn 1, and Charlotte just wasn't running it. So I was like, okay, if I can just get through this turn, then I'll be able to score out on my next turn. And I put a Hagen or Hagen in front of Archives. And Charlotte ended up running Archives and being just 1 strength below what she needed to break the Hagen. And I realized now I should probably say what it does. It is a 6 strength, 4 to res barrier, -1 for each installed icebreaker, and trash 1 program that is not a decoder, fractor, or killer is 1 subroutine and then end the run. And it ended up trashing the Amakua, which was the only icebreaker that she had out on the table. And that was what saved me at the 11th hour when I was very, very close to losing that game.
Well, and the interesting part about that too is that she had planned out her turn to like access things in a certain order so that she could get through to your, I forget if it was R&D or HQ was the ultimate target. But the idea was, because she had been Mavirused a turn or 2 before, so her Amakua had no tokens on it. So the idea was, I'll just run Archives first for like the free access there to put a token on Amakua. And ran directly into Hagen and Amakua died instead. So it just totally derailed the entire turn on the first run.
Yes, I'm remembering actually it was even more interesting than that. I didn't have enough money to res the Hagen at the beginning of the turn. And Jamie, who was Charlotte's partner, convinced her to run the Hyperloop that I had planned to score on the next turn, convinced that it was a Spin Doctor, and was like, run that first. It turned out to be a Hyperloop extension. I was able to take 5 credits because I don't remember how many credits I had, but not enough to res the Hagen. And by running the Hyperloop extension, it gave me 3 credits plus the 2 for Sports Medals ability. Right. And then ran Archives. And if she had done it in the other order, I would not have been able to res the Hagen. And she would have gotten through and won the game.
Yeah.
Netrunner, man.
It was, it was so good. It was like such a, just like watching them plan out the whole thing and then just being like, just sitting there knowing like, excellent, it's all going to end.
I guess I did a good job not giving anything away, but I was just sitting there trying to.
Yeah, your poker face was good.
So, yeah, that was exciting. That was probably my most exciting moment of the evening.
Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Sure, let's move on to our next segment. That's spec work. Okay, in spec work, we go over cool rules, interactions, and things, and PSAs for cards that you might think work one way and actually work a different way. And newsflash, everyone, you can mitosis out. Hold on, a piece of ice. This is not super news to everybody in the whole world, but let me just read mitosis. Mitosis is a 3-credit operation. It is a double, meaning exactly this part. As an additional cost to play this operation, spend click. So 2 clicks, basically, to do this. Install up to 2 cards from HQ, creating new remote servers each time. Place 2 advancement counters on each of those cards. You cannot score or res either of those cards this turn. So most of the time, what people assume or think of when they're doing this is putting out 2 different traps, or an agenda in the trap, or 2 agendas, or whatever. But it just says you can install 2 cards, and you place advancement counters on them. So one of the 2 cards can be a piece of ice. And then you can, with your 3rd click, put something behind it, which is neat. And we learned this trick from Dan B as I was, I don't know. This was at our startup tournament, and he mentioned it, and I have been holding on to that tidbit for a little while. So
yeah,
mitosis, you can do pieces of ice. That's cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's not, at least it wasn't obvious to me, because if you put a piece of ice down, it's not protecting anything at that moment because it has to be a new remote server. I think that's what makes it not obvious that that's a play that you can make. And like you said, use your third click.
And one of the first decks I built was actually trying to use mitosis and Trick of Light to do a bunch of fast advance stuff. And it occurs to me that one of the issues that I had was I'd keep putting out assets with advancement tokens and they'd get trashed, but you can't really do that effectively with ice. So the mitosis is actually a pretty good way to store advancement tokens for Trick of Light, or what's the other card?
Red Planet Couriers.
You can trash to. There you go.
Yeah.
To move a bunch of advancement tokens onto one card. So
yeah, that's a standard card. As an additional cost to play this operation, spend click. So it's a triple. Move all advancement tokens from all installed cards to one card that can be advanced. So it's just everything to one spot.
Ooh, government takeover. I smell some jank.
Well, that one is rotated, but yes.
The 9/6, yeah.
I found, so it's not in our notes, but and this isn't even news, but I found a little rules thing that I didn't realize when I was playing Tranquility Home Grid. It's it's an upgrade region, remote server only. The first time each turn you install a card in the server, gain 2 credits or draw 1 card. You cannot trigger that the turn you install it, because it is the card you install in that server that turn. It was obvious once pointed out to me, but I initially played it thinking I could immediately get 2 credits back on that turn by playing another card into that server.
I had a similar thing with security testing. When your server begins, you may choose a server. The first time each turn you make a successful run on the chosen server, instead of breaching it, gain 2 money. And I was trying to name the same server with multiple copies of security testing and gain like 4 or 6 money off of it. But it was pointed out to me that the first time you make a successful run on the chosen server, instead of breaching it, gain 2. So when the first security testing triggers, it takes away your breach and turns it into gaining 2 money. You no longer have a breach for the subsequent security testing.
Right, it's like a cost.
Trigger off
you
of.
have spent the breach.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a replacement effect thing. So there's no longer a breach happening for them to replace. So you can't double and triple up the security testing, which I did not realize until I tried to do it to my opponent. They were like, "Why are you naming the same server twice? You fool."
I want to jump back real quick to what Johnny said about Tranquility and make an important distinction here. The reason why Tranquility Home Grid doesn't trigger itself is because that when it is installed, it doesn't have a window to be rezzed before it looks to see is that card there or not. It's not active.
So to clarify, I was not on the assumption that it would trigger itself. I thought that on the turn I installed it, I could install a card into that server and gain the credits off of it.
Got it. Right. But you've already installed it.
But I've already installed Tranquility Home.
Right. Yeah. But I want to point this out because this is cool. I was actually reading this today. So Tranquility doesn't trigger just by itself, naked in a server. It won't trigger itself because it's not rezzed when the card is being installed. But Masterwork, version 37, which is an uprising card, the first time each turn you install a piece of hardware, draw 1 card. Well, Masterwork is not unrezzed because it is a runner card. And when you install it, guess what it does? It triggers itself.
Oh, that's interesting. It sees itself come in, so it replaces itself. Huh.
So, important distinction there. Just like it's the only reason why Tranquility doesn't trigger itself is because it's not rezzed when it's being installed.
Right. Rules
are fun.
Mm-hmm.
Other rules things real quick. I feel like there's a lot of spec work stuff that I want to share because we haven't. It's been a minute. This will be a long episode. Apologies, kind of, but also you're welcome. Simulchip. Simulchip is a cool card, and it has a lot of things that it interacts with, especially like things like clot. But that's not what we're talking about. We're mostly the prerequisite for Simulchip that got added when it was created. This is a recreation of a card called Clone Chip, which was just trash install a program from your heap, paying its install cost. Simulchip is If no installed programs have been trashed this turn, you must trash one installed program as an additional cost to use this hardware. And then to use it, you trash it, install one program from your heap, paying 3 credits less. So the thing that I thought was neat and hadn't realized was that fermenters going off, they fulfill the prerequisite for simulchips for trashing the programs because they're programs. So when you really need to do if you need to install a thing, the fermenter going off will fulfill that requirement. Also, it feels like cheating, but if you have a botulus down on a piece of ice and it is a piece of ice that you don't really care about so much and you want to move that botulus to somewhere else, you can use simulchip to trash the botulus and then immediately use the simulchip to reinstall the botulus somewhere else.
And that's because the trashing the botulus in that case is a cost. So by the time you are getting to choosing a target from your heap, it's already been trashed, right? Yeah, before you choose your targets or anything, the thing has time to get into the heap so that you can then reinstall it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can move it around, and it'll even give you, because when it installs, it gets another token. You can use a totally used up botulus again.
Immediately to go get one more
turn.
token that turn, yeah.
Yep.
And it's free because it's 3 credits less.
I can't do that in the middle of accessing. Yeah, no, there's no paidability window in the middle of accessing the ice, right?
You could do it before or after an ice encounter.
Yep. Yeah, no.
So you can use a botulus on one piece of ice, on the outermost piece of ice, get through it, and then simulchip pop it and put it on the second piece of ice and use it to break.
Yeah. And you're just chaining it through. Oh, I love it.
It's pretty cool.
That's so good. That's so good.
That's all we.
If you have cookbook out, then you can get a botulus with 2 counters each.
Ooh, yeah, that's pretty sweet. Now how do we recur the simulchips? This is why I like Netrunner, guys. I have more stuff, but we'll save it for next time because we have an important word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, have you heard about Extremely Dark Spirits? It's the newest VR sensation from GameNet.
I heard those games are really, really hard. I hope this one's a little more noob accessible.
It isn't. It takes all the bosses that statistics show people fought the most times in the last game and strings them together in rapid succession.
Oh, awesome. So all the bosses that were so fun, people just fought them over and over?
Sure.
I don't know. It doesn't sound like the game for me. I really want an immersive experience.
But that's just it. It's totally immersive. Every time you log in, the patented True Difficulty VR headset hermetically seals to your head, preventing you from removing it until you've beaten that pesky boss. Here, I'll log in and show you. All right, here we go. So we're coming up to the first enemy here, and...
Hey, that's okay. At least you know where the enemy is now.
Yeah, you can just roll past that arrow and slice him. Easy.
Yeah, I got this. Let's just...
Ooh, tough break. But it's not like there'll be a rolling boulder trap around every corner, right?
You guys haven't played these games, have you?
Looks like you might be in that helmet for a while. What do you do if you need to eat?
You can't stop to eat. Look out, a skeleton archer is...
Looks like you need to get good if you want to get food. Oh, look out!
No, listen, I got this. This time I got trust me.
Get good.
Lovely word from our sponsor, GameNet, a wholly owned subsidiary of NBN.
That was silly.
All right. So next up is Into the Depths.
So Into the Depths is going to be me, and I took our Rode podcast thingy and I went out with a single microphone, and I went to a tournament. This was last month at this point, maybe before then. I don't know. It's been a minute. And I played some games and I recorded more conversations with folks, kind of like in episode 4 of Neostatic. So this is a standard tournament though. So it was a different setting, new people. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. There you go. it's into the depths. Hello, and welcome to Neon Static. This is Eric. I'm here undercover doing some deep investigative journalism here. I'm pretending like I'm going to be a standard Netrunner player for the day. This is pre-tournament at Battleground Games in Norton, Mass. And I'm going to be participating in my first standard format tournament. I'm going to be checking in throughout the day to report on my progress and talk to anybody who I've played against or who's playing here today, to anyone who wants to see how it's going for them. And then we'll have a snapshot of time in late March of 2023. And audio quality will be probably a little shaky because I'm on one dynamic mic and I'm just going to be passing it back and forth like a cool reporter person. So stand by. I'm on some janky decks. I'm on an Isuak deck that I brewed myself. I expect to spend most of the day at the bottom tables. I think there are 9 people registered for the event right now. We'll see how many end up showing up. It's probably going to be in the range of 12 to 16. Oh, and I'm running a modified version of the Eat Me Alice deck that Andre had a video on for my runner. So yeah, let's find out how this goes. I don't have too much experience against. I'm going to be reading a lot of cards today and finding out what I need to know. So I'm here by myself. I don't have Johnny or Nick. Neither of them were able to make it today. But our recent champion of the standard tournament, Dave, came down with me. So, okay, I'll check back in later. Okay, I'm back. That was after round 1, and I was paired with Holly. Would you like to introduce yourself, Holly?
My name's Holly. I go by On Holiday. My pronouns are she and her.
So Holly absolutely dismantled me. So this is a double-sided Swiss tournament. The last tournament that we had, which if you're listening to this, you will have heard all about. Time is weird because it's not released yet, but it will be. Was a single-sided Swiss. So this is my first time being able to do the Corp runner switch. And I Corp first, and I had my Isuak homebrew mitosis deck that I'm trying to put things on the board and have traps mixed in with like 2-point agendas or things that I can seamless launch out and get the ID to trigger, which on JNet Casual has like worked wonderfully. But I have a feeling, Holly, you've been playing for a while. Is that true?
Yeah, so I was playing back before they canceled the game, then I took a break, and when they launched the Midnight Sun booster pack, that was when I was at PAX last year, and I got back into the game, and I've been playing pretty steadily since then.
Oh, sorry, Joe. I moved them. We have one mic today, and I have to figure out how to do this, handing it back and forth. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I think the matchup we played showed one of the weaknesses of Isuak, which is that if you can't really get ahead, right, if you don't have that setup time, then you can get pressured out.
Right. Holly just kept running. She just kept running all of my traps, and I would put like one thing out, and it was like, yeah, that's Antarctica. Great. 4 net damage, and I will continue to like just keep dismantling the traps as they come. And I think the idea behind the deck for me was ideal turn 1 is like you have a mitosis, you have 2 things you could advance. One's a trap, one's maybe a 2-point agenda, or they're both traps. And then one is an NAPD cordon in case you want to put like 2 agendas down, an NAPD cordon, and they can only steal 1 probably for the economy. But that's kind of like the perfect hand to start the game. But other than that, if the runner if they don't let up on running, it just falls apart. So what were you running?
So I was playing Apocalypse Hoshiko. I just never ended up drawing the Apocalypses, so I didn't need to. So it ended up being very much, it's just a deck crammed to the gills with Econ and with the bin breakers. So it wasn't like I had anything to protect in my hand. Like you play something down, I'll just ram my face into it over and over again. Keep the points off the board, force you to use the moon pools.
Right, yeah. I did get 1 moon pool to fire. I feel like it was a mistake. I did it very early game, like turn 1 or turn 2. I put it down on the table. And I've just for me, I'm like trying to make sure I exercise using that tool. Like I don't think I've ever had, once or twice I've had the moon pool fire to actually like score me an agenda. Ideally, it's there in this deck because I have Regenesis and Jumon, and I'm trying to, at the end of the runner's turn, res the moon pool, kick the Jumon out of my hand, and there's, hopefully Regenesis on the table, and you can triple advance and score it out, and who cares about the ID? You now have Jumon that's going to start spewing out advancement counters, but it doesn't really work that often. When it happens, it's wonderful. But yeah, this is definitely like a combo-y deck that has some weaknesses, isn't the most competitive thing in the world.
Yeah, and I also had Stargate pretty early on too, and Stargate with because the only piece of ice you had protecting it was the Psy game, and I won a couple of the Psy games. I could go in and I could try to strip out the ice that you would draw to shore that defensive position up.
Yeah, I had a mind game, and also the first time I've ever done a Psy game in person, so I'm pretty green. But that was fun. A couple of times we had a rules question pretty early on where the mind game triggered, and this was on a Stargate run. And I forget the exact wording on Stargate, but I believe it's something to the effect of, make the run on R&D. If successful, then you reveal the top 3 cards from R&D. And the question was, okay, so I won the Psy game and bounced you over to Archives. And the question was, well, the card still says reveal the top 3 cards of R&D if successful. So is the run successful? And we were lucky to have the rules manager from NSG, Jamie, who made a ruling on the spot. So
the way that if successful, because there's the restriction on R&D, the successful run must be made on R&D. Same as if I had used diversion of funds, which requires a successful run on HQ, whereas something like dirty laundry, right, which just requires any successful run, if that gets bounced, any run was still successful, so you'd still get your $5 from dirty laundry, but the specific server that you had targeted would not.
Okay. So yeah, that was that game. It was fairly quick. I scored a couple of points, but you were able to keep the pressure on, and that Stargate was wicked. And using Stargate to peek down 3 cards, see that there's an actual piece of ice that might turn things around eventually, and just binning it is just wicked. So I had several turns where I need to start the turn with the tools in hand. And I was like, okay, draw, and now I have a click left, so that was tricky. And then our second game was even faster. I was on Alice, an Alice deck that was pretty heavily copied from a Metropole Grid video with a little bit of a few changes, the Eat Me Alice deck. And turn 1 for me, I think I played a card. I had 3 cards in hand and ran an iced up Archives, which turned out to be an Anansi, and I learned about how Anansi works more properly. I looked at Anansi and said, okay, there's a sub that does one net damage, and then read the card again, and it's at the end of the encounter. If you don't break all 3 subs on it, it does 3 more net damage, and then I flatlined. So that was a pretty fast game. So then we just respun and got to play the game proper. And could you describe your PE deck? Because it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'm playing a PE deck that I had seen in tournament maybe a month or so ago. And the idea is that you're trying to set up poisoned archives. You're trying to set up an archives with stuff like Project Kusanagi and News Team in there to really punish the run. And then at some point, just casually discard an Obokata and Regenesis back in. And this is alongside like the general like PE tricks like Snare and Anemone in order to keep them kind of scared. But instead of placing down a whole bunch of traps that you're going to advance, you're really trying to build one server and put down a 3-1, pass the turn, maybe advance it, and then slowly grind them away rather than gotcha them with the big burst.
I also had the experience of, running. I think that's probably pretty common running. I wasn't constantly thinking Obokata. For listeners who aren't familiar, Obokata Protocol is a 5/3 Jinteki agenda that says as an additional cost to steal this agenda, the runner must suffer 4 net damage. So you need to have a lot of cards in hand, otherwise it self-protects and it just sits there. Yeah, PE. I kind of wonder about, I've noticed a trend with the NSG cards that there are fewer whenever triggers and more the first time each turn triggers. Do you have an opinion on that trend? Like, does PE feel like the whenever on it feels very strong to me?
So I think PE is very much a holdover. Like it was one of the original cards in that set. And I think that the space it occupies as like that sort of chip, be afraid, right? Like every time this happens, I'm going to do 1, has carved out so much Jinteki design space in terms of what is okay versus not okay to print. And I'm curious to see if they'll eventually rotate it out, considering how popular it is. But it's definitely got its haters too, right? Like a lot of people like hate it. Like if you try to play, practice this deck online, there's a lot of people who are like, turn 1, I'm just gonna scoop it up and leave. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll change the tag so everybody knows I'm playing Jinteki.
Well, we're getting called into the second round. Thanks so much for a really helpful game. And you were very helpful in helping me remember my triggers and things like that. So I appreciate that. Thanks for talking with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Be back for the next round. Okay, back after round 2. I'm going to ask my opponent to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Charlotte, she, her. I'm 32 years old and I've been playing Netrunner since 2016, though most of the time not competitively. So this is actually still probably maybe the third serious tournament I've been to. But it's fun. I'm just playing my best.
You played very well. You swept both games, right? Right? I lost twice. Yes. Okay. I couldn't even remember. That's one of my superpowers is that I have the memory of a goldfish. So losing is fine because I can't even remember. So let's see. What were our games? You corped first, and I played Alice against your PD. Right? Do you want to describe your deck a little bit and what it was trying to do?
Yeah, so I actually have to admit that I did not build my decks myself. I haven't played Netrunner in the past months because I was super stressed at work. So I was just like, hey, can anybody give me advice as to what I should play? And it should be somewhat straightforward. And so somebody suggested this precision design deck, which is actually unchanged since Worlds. So it doesn't even have the new cards in it. And it's a very straightforward get money, install ice, and score behind a deck. And I'm actually really happy that, while this may not be tier 1 or whatever, it is a deck that you can currently play. I like playing Netrunner where you actually score agendas behind ice. And so, yeah, that's what I like about it.
Yeah, so we had some turn 1 interaction where you're icing up your archives, and I run into a drafter, and then you put... Alice's ability fired a fair amount of times where cards got discarded from HQ into archives. I got to access them, and then they got pulled right back. That one in particular, I forget what got discarded, but it was like a hedge fund, and then came right back, and you played it again. And a lot of spin doctors interaction, just kind of fighting spin doctors the whole time for me while I was trying to find my breakers. And I don't know, do you have any other notable moments from that game?
So maybe I won the game in the end by playing 2 seamless launches into a global food, so a 5-3 to score out. And I was very nervous whether that would work, but having the 2 seamless in hand, MVP card for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that was right at the point where I was sort of done setting up. It took a while to get set up, and I was like, okay, I think I had all the bin breakers at that point. No, I didn't have the Black Orchestra, right? But I didn't think I needed it. I didn't feel like I needed it anyway. I was sure as soon as I ran something else, I would have run into a code gate. But that was a really enjoyable game. That wasn't like my not that my first round games were unenjoyable, but I did have on the runner side died first turn, So we played again, and that was more fun. But this was a good interaction. I think you said at some point, like Alice kind of throws you off, and you have to sort of readjust your game plan based on the idea, which is the whole point of it for me is sort of fun. So, and then after that we switched, and I am on my Isuat tech, which I've already described. And what were you playing?
So I was playing a Freedom Kumalo deck again, which I did not come up myself, but Ben, who's a player from Boston as well, he was kind enough to let me look at his deck list, and I basically played that with 1 or 2 minor changes. And so I've loved Freedom ever since he got released, but I actually haven't played him in a really long time now, like several years for sure. So it's a bit of an adjustment. I'm not running all of the virus stuff. So the deck is running the conspiracy bin breakers. But yeah, I enjoy being able to trash a lot of things. When normally I don't play decks that trash so much. So for me, it's a new thing to do. And I'm liking the deck. In my first game with it today, so first round, it didn't work because I couldn't find a barrier breaker and just couldn't get in, which is always kind of sad when that happens. But this time I was a bit luckier with the draws.
You also were running like Palangis, which were clutch in this match, I think. Like you had that one clutch, one Palangi out, and I had DNA tracker at the very last click of the game where you broke for 9 because you could. It was not efficient, but you didn't need it to be. And then I feel like not too much else there was super out there. You had a Yusuf. That's got to probably be standard in Kamala decks, right?
Yeah, so Yusuf is the best of the virus counter only breakers because Yusuf can also use virus counters from other cards and gets its own virus counters very reliably, and it's cheap. So
the listeners of this podcast, at least a large portion probably, or at least I know a bunch of them are playing startup, a lot of them. This is kind of my first foray into standard. So could you just describe how Yusuf works?
How what? Sorry? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, Yusuf is so it's a fractor, a barrier breaker. And so it costs money to install, but afterwards it works entirely off of virus counters. So it gets virus counters on itself when you make successful runs. And then you can use both the virus counters on Yusuf as well as on other cards to boost the strength and to break subroutines. So once you have Yusuf set up and maybe a few other cards that reliably gain you virus counters, it's essentially free to use.
Is that deck on Knob Curie, the console that generates? It is, yeah. I've seen some Kamala around, and I was playing back when he came out and had a good time with that stuff, but it's been long enough that I'm trying to remember. And so our game, I'm on this shell game, Ishuak, mitosis, 2 hybrid releases down on the table turn 1, and I forget what my last click was, but install a mind game on it. And you won the mind game side, got the hybrid, and then left the other one alone. So I got to score one of them. That was kind of fun. But then you had some really good accesses. You stole Jumon at some point out of my hand of like 5 cards with 1 ice or one agenda and snatched that. You had some really good accesses. And I don't think I really fired too many critical. There was like an Urtica cipher that went off at some point, but I don't know. What did you think of the game?
So I did have the feeling that I got kind of lucky on accesses, but also at the start of the game, R&D was open for a fairly long time. And one of the things about Freedom is that because his ability allows you to trash cards that are normally not trashable, R&D is somehow a lot more permeable than it usually is, because you can go and just get rid of the top card with the Freedom ability, and which gives you extra accesses. So it's sort of, I guess, so of course it's not multi-access, but it just lets you go deeper on R&D than you usually can. So I think in that sense, the ID ability really did a lot in this game.
Yeah, Kamala was especially painful. I was afraid that you were going to be trashing my seamless launches, which I was holding my hand the entire time, and you never managed to do that, which was one that you access off R&D, I think, but I had 2 in hand. Since I'm assuming generally, and I know in this case, that the players that I'm playing against today have more experience than me, without knowing all the cards in this deck, having seen a little bit of it, and without totally changing its game plan, do you have any suggestions on how to make that deck more consistent or competitive?
The Isuak deck? Yeah. So I have no personal experience with Isuak. I feel like doing the small agendas on the table thing is the way to go, just to get your win condition down. What I was wondering is Obokata Protocol in that deck? So I think Obokata Protocol needs to be in that deck, so that, first of all, I mean, just because it's Jinteki's strongest agenda by far, since it's so difficult to steal. So for the people who play only startup, Obokata Protocol is a 5/3, which in order to steal, the runner has to pay 4 net damage as a cost. And so it is often difficult to steal. And let's say you've already gone down to, winning on 6 points, then obviously scoring an Obokata is going to be a big deal, especially since you often won't score it in one go, so it will really be 4 points. So yeah, I think it absolutely should have Obokata.
Okay, yeah, I'd considered Obokata and had it in at some point in an early version of the deck. I swapped it out for vulnerability audits so that I can install blank and then go double seamless or a moonpool and seamless and score it and get the ability to fire. And the deck doesn't have net damage too much in it, so like the Obokatas are a little easier to steal than in like a PE, but yeah, I'll got to play around with that. Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. I also think that what you said before, adding just more ice is probably what I should do. But anyway, thanks for chatting with me. We got to go get some lunch before every time is up. And we've been talking that's the whole time. Yeah, anyway, thanks so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, back after round 3. That was the final round of the tournament. And my record today was fantastic. I went 0-6. Just lost every game. Although the last game I thought was going pretty well. And I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm not again, once again, from last week, same person.
Not again. Last week you were in the finals game at the startup tournament, and we got to have a couple of fun games there. The first game, I'm on Alice, listeners have heard. But what were you playing?
So I'm playing Personal Evolution, the ID that everyone hates, and my runner ID is Hoshiko, which is okay, but it did not help me today much.
Did you build them yourself? Did you net tech them? And if either way, what they're trying to do?
So I built them myself. My Hoshiko deck is like, it's just trying to like extract value and be rich because I want to avoid hard-hitting news. Like I want to just match every single trace so I don't get boomed. So it's just got a ton of econ, and I'm running After Image with Netmerker, and I've got a single turbine in there for Buzzsaw and Cleaver so I can break ice for cheap, and I'm rich enough so that boosting them up to 8 is not a problem. But getting my engine built takes a while, and by then I've just lost something.
So for listeners who don't play Standard, hard-hitting news is a pretty big deal in Standard. Do you want to just describe that card?
So I think it's a 3-cost operation that is terminal. So if you play it, it ends your turn. I think you trace 3 or 4, and it gives you 4 tags. And the follow-up card, which is Boom, just 7 meat damage, normally means game if you don't clear those tags. So you want to like somehow be rich enough to dodge the trace. But the catch is that you can only play it if the runner made a successful run. So if you don't run, it doesn't matter.
This may be skewed because I have a very small sample set here, but how prevalent are kill decks, at least in what you're seeing?
It's not that the kill decks are prevalent, it's just that the combo of hard-hitting news and Boom is prevalent, because if the runner makes one mistake, hard-hitting news just basically, most of the times it'll end the game, and it's really like, is a massive stall for the corp, at least. And the problem is that I think I've seen every single faction have hard-hitting news, no problem if it's sports metal, if it's HB, well, maybe not Jinteki, but everyone except Jinteki almost always has a hard-hitting news.
So you always need to be worried about, it's like a skill check. They got to keep you in line, and if you get reckless, then you can get slapped by this card.
Yeah, so you basically just need to play around it somehow, or like if you suspect it, just don't. But there are also a lot of cards that counter it, like there's misdirection, so it's not exactly uncounterable, but it's really annoying because it's everywhere.
And so your PE deck featured Bladder Wards. What else was going on in there?
So my PE deck is a lot of big ice and just a lot of econ going on. So if you see the theme of both my runner decks and corp deck, if you see they're both super rich. And that's why I named them Cash and Money in the sheet that we were filling. So my PE deck is just big ice and a bunch of upgrades like Ben Musashi and Hokusai Grid. And I added Warroid Tracker because people kept trashing my upgrades. So basically, and I installed Anemone and Data Loop that basically pumps Obokata up to like, if you want to steal an Obokata, you have to have like 12 cards in hand. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's the second time in 2 days that I've seen the Data Loop Obokata combo, which is very strong. For those not familiar, Data Loop, on encounter, you have to put 2 cards from hand on top of your stack, so you effectively even if you're accounting already for Obokata's 4 net that you have to suffer, plus there's Hokusais and all these other triggers to protect Obokata. Does the Hokusai go first? Is it on success? Yeah, okay. So you just have like you said, a massive hand to deal with the Obokatas. Those are very strong. Our game, I felt like you said a number of times, like, this isn't good, I'm in a bad position. And then, because I put some early pressure on with Alice's ability, and you sort of scrambled to protect archives. And then if you just want to describe how the rest of it played out.
Yeah, so by the time you had stolen the second Blood in the Water, you were at 5 points, and I think I was only at 2 points. And archives and R&D are practically open. There's an Anemone and R&D, which you luckily didn't run, but because that would have been really convenient for you. You had MK Ultra out, and you could have probably sniped an agenda or 2 from there that would have won you the game. And Hippo removing the Anansi from archives was something that slowed me down, which is why I had to just install and hope the Spin Doctor drew me some ice, which it did. But also that was super lucky because you had trashed 2 of my spin doctors already, and there was a third copy I drew. So I feel like I lucked out on there.
You also, at some point, I was running your bladder warts with a Maw and just not trashing them, and then triggering Maw's ability, which makes the corporation discard a random card from hand from HQ. So there's a lot of HQ pressure in the Alice deck. And then at some point, I made, honestly, the mistake of trashing one of the bladder warts because I was sort of afraid that you'd duck under and do 2 net to start a turn and do something funny and put me in a bad spot. And I thought, okay, at this point, I just need to be safe and stabilized. So I trashed one of them, and then you over-installed the other in double advanced something, which I assumed was an Urtica.
It was an NGO front. I just wanted to remove the Maw trigger so I don't have to keep tossing cards.
And then this game ended the second time today that I have got flatlined on a piece of ice that I didn't know how bad it was. And that was Chiashi today. And I just didn't have the credits to break that. It's a 12 to res, like 8 strength. It's really strong.
It's a really big ice, but problem is Jinteki normally does not have good ice, besides Anansi and I guess DNA Tracker. And P especially does not have a lot of money. I just checked my deck to be super rich, which is why I'm affording that ice. Otherwise, nobody plays Chiashi. And additionally, a lot of people play Almakua, which is a turtle and AI, which you know. So Chiashi basically is soft turtle hate. So if it has a text like every time if an AI is present on board and you break a subroutine, that you lose 2 cards from the top of your stack. So that's 6 cards at best. So
right, and so that's like a grinder that's grinding the runner down because the PE matchup is just like your cards are life, and you need to. Every time I've won against PE, I always end up with like 4 cards left in my stack. So that seems to be the way it goes. So the Chiashi, if you are running Amakua, that seems pretty strong. Any other thoughts about how our games? What about our Isuak game? How did that go for you?
yeah, so normally against Isuak, how I do is I'll just run every single trap. But first I like to get an idea of how the Isuak player is playing. Like, are they doing my tosses? But are the 2 my tosses both traps? Are they both agendas? Based on that, I'll decide if I want to run there next to my tosses or not. So I don't think I ran the first of the, I think you had a single something advanced twice on the board in first 2 turns or something, which I never ran, so I don't know what it was. But the my tosses that you did after, because you would have thought that since I did not run the thing that was beforehand, you would assume I would not run the thing that you just my tosses either, which is why I ran it. And I think twice there were agendas in there.
Yeah, I think I assumed that you'd run something at that point, right? 3 cards with double advancements and your Iswak, that could be the game, right? Like a seamless launch, and then you score some stuff and you just win. So you have to run something, and I think I did put down 2 agendas, and I iced one of them, and I had the money to res whatever that was. I forget. It's amazing how fast I lose details on these games, but. Yeah, I think running everything against Isuak is very strong. I saw that a lot today. People just were like, okay, I run, and sort of dismantle all the traps pretty quickly. So, yeah, that deck, I thought I would get one game where it did its thing, and then had an exciting moment near the end of it where I had everything ready to go. I had a moon pool on the table. I had a Regenesis still on the table, with double advancement counters on it, and I was just drawing to find. I was like, "Can I find a vulnerability audit?" And then at the end of your turn, if I had gotten one, end of your turn, res the moon pool, discard the vulnerability audit once you have no more clicks left, and then on my turn, seamless launch and score the Regenesis, and then you get the trigger for the ID that would have taken. Did I even score? Did I even trigger my ID in our game? Do you remember? No, yeah. I didn't in that game. I did in the previous 2, but only for very minimal effect. I think I got 1 counter on it, and maybe I think I got 4 points the entire time. But it was fun. It was the deck is really fun when it works. It's not so fun when people just take it apart. So that's a little disappointing. I had more fun playing Runner today than I did with my Corp deck, but that so it goes.
Also, if you seamless the Regenesis, you're not getting the agenda from archives because seamless would enter archives, so you wouldn't be able to score the vulnerability audit from archives. You'll get 2 points because of the one of the trigger, one of Regenesis, but You won't get the 3 from vulnerability audit.
Right. You would just score. You would just hard advance the Regenesis just to get the vulnerability audit. It's good enough. So that's 4 points. And that would have put me at just 4, I think. Did I even score an agenda? I don't think I did. So, anyway, it didn't go great, but I appreciated the games. They were fun games. Glad we got to play again. And thanks for chatting with me.
Of course. I'm always happy to talk.
All right. We'll try and have a chat with the people who won the tournament. So we'll be back. All right. And we're back talking with the 2 finalists and the champion of the day. So you want to both just introduce yourselves real quick?
I'm Erica, and this is Holly, I think you... Yeah, I was just going to say you already heard, but...
Yeah, I'm Holly. I'm back after victory against my fiance, who I love very much.
Yeah, that was a cool... somebody said Lover's Quarrel for the finals. That's really fun. So, Erica, did I overhear you say that this is your first in-person tournament?
Yeah, this is my first Netrunner tournament. Like, I've played locals in the Boston area a bunch and a little bit of Jinteki, but I haven't actually been playing Netrunner that long. Most of my experience was playing a bunch of Standard and Legacy Magic the Gathering back in college. Played a bunch of tournaments back then, but this is the first time I've actually played Netrunner at an event that had, like, a bracket.
And what were you playing? Because we already heard from Holly. What were you playing today for your pairs of decks?
So I don't know that I have a firm enough understanding of the game yet to be brewing my own. So what I did is I just picked out 2 419 decks that had done fairly well recently. And since Drago got banned, pulled the 3 no free lunch out of them. And I pulled the 3 no free lunches out of one of them and moved over the 2 inside jobs and a 3rd dirty laundry from the other. Just sort of squashed them together. And then for my corp, I'm running a card-for-card rip of a version of the Formicary Obelisk that had done well, I think, in some European tournament like a month or 2 ago. It looked like a fun deck. I played a ton of Modern Birthing Pod back in Magic the Gathering, and Ob is the closest thing I can do to that in this game now that they've banned World Tree.
Yeah, I have no Magic background, but I'm sure that other listeners will understand what you're talking about. Birthing Pod sounds like, right, things are popping up quickly, and because this is similar to Ob's ability.
It is. Birthing Pod lets you sacrifice cards to get cards that cost 1 more, whereas Ob, you sacrifice cards to get cards that cost 1 less.
So the 2 of you just faced off, and Holly took the championship. How did the game go?
I thought the game went really well. I think it was pretty tight. I came in thinking I would probably be slightly unfavored, but I mean, it's all up in the air in terms of like how it lines up. I ended up playing, I think, 3 copies of Stock Buyback, and Stock Buyback is a hell of a card, especially in an econ matchup. I think I played pretty well. I think Erica played well. I just kind of lined up for me.
Yeah, your deck, which we talked about before, but we didn't get to cover the Stock Buybacks in there. You said you were trying to poison your archives, kind of set up a remote scoring server, and Erica had 2 or 3 agendas kind of fairly early on. One was agendas. One was a news team, and Stock Buybacks for like 8. Sorry,
it's 3 for each. So for 8, and then I think
9.
Yeah, for 9 and then 12 twice. So
you got a 15.
Oh, I got a 15 in there. Yeah.
So just like constant economic, like you could res whatever you wanted, and yeah, that's a very strong card when you get a couple of agendas across the table, and that doesn't seem too hard of a thing to do. And let's see what notable moments. There was an Obokata access in archives.
So there were a couple of moments that I think were sort of the big mistakes I made. One is when I accessed the news team in archives and didn't take it, which since at that moment I was up on points and didn't want to drop back behind. I was at 4. I was hoping I'd be able to steal another Obokata and seal the game instead of having to go for a bunch more singles. So I left the news team, which then left archives as a place I couldn't go for counters. You no longer had to ice it. It was definitely a mistake. And then there were several other mistakes I made playing around the Identity's ability, which cost me a Stargate and a Unity, which both would have been very helpful cards to have. The DNA tracker in front of... Was that in front of HQ? In front of HQ was just sort of a persistent issue since my only way through it was an Omakua, and you have to get 6 counters, which then, you can purge, and you have to get 6 counters again, which takes multiple turns. I should have just rammed my face into the server with what I knew the House of Knives was in, because the second House of Knives made the game basically impossible to finish out with how few cards I had left in my deck.
Right, yeah, like basically having to be worried about an Obokata being stolen or trying to steal one, and also having the House of Knives pinging you all the time, or yeah, just the threat seems kind of ever present. And that I gotta say, I think I noticed seeing you visibly change the way that I feel when I get into that situation with P. We're just kind of like, like I don't know what what do you do at that point, right?
Yeah, that was the point where I did the math with cards left in deck and realized that I could not steal another Obokata. So like I was effectively out of the game.
Yeah, it feels I think maybe for me with the thing with PE is that like it's the limited resource thing, whereas more standard Netrunner, you are just like, well, I just need more credits and I will keep clicking for credits until I can get them and then maybe win. But this is like, no, it's out. I have no more left that I can draw, and it is a finite resource. Yeah.
I definitely think a lot of it comes down to some amount of inexperience in this matchup, since up until the ban list change, I was on the World Tree Woo deck, which sort of gets to win this matchup for free because you just have a 70 card deck.
Right. I was playing Alice early with a 50 card deck, and that feels like a little bit of nice padding for somebody else. Is 419 45?
419 is 45.
Yeah.
You actually want to run 45 instead of just putting a giant pile of singletons to tutor with the World Tree. So you actually run out of cards and then lose the game, as opposed to just sort of getting to walk wherever you want to go with no concern for the future.
Anything else that either of you want to say about the matchup or the tournament?
Yeah, I feel like the matchup is very like Obokata focused, and when the game is basically like either you're going to score 7 1-pointers if I can stop you from getting the Obokatas, then setting up so that Erica really wasn't hitting accesses with 5 cards in hand that could be the Obokata, I think it's playing to not lose, but I think in the Crim matchup that is something you can do. You can play to not lose on Jinteki and just draw it out, get the singles, get the pings.
Well, thank you both for talking with me again. And that's a wrap for us here at Neon Static. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks a lot. And that's a wrap for episode 4 of Neon Static. We've been your hosts, Eric,
Johnny,
and Nick.
If you want to get in touch with us about anything we've said during this podcast, we can be reached by email at neonstaticpod@gmail.com. We're also Neon Static Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Our handles on and Mastodon? Yeah, and Mastodon. Our handles on Discord are Canister, Triforce Legend, and Gullbrander. A link to the New Hampshire Netrunners Discord will be in the show notes, as always, where you can find us.
Thanks for listening.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, and good night.
I'm Johnny Hollander.
I'm Nick Mason.
And I'm Eric Hayden.
And this is Neon Static.
Oh, you. Jeez.
Immediately.
Welcome to episode 5 of Neon Static.
I'm sorry. I had to do it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're joined tonight by Bino.
Bino, no.
Bino, love the story of Bino. See, I'm the only one who doesn't have whatever knob you guys are turning to make yourselves sound like chipmunks. So I can't.
Bino, love the story of Bino. Did we both do it?
Yeah, that was like
that's gross.
Weirdly in sync. I hate it.
I'm Johnny Hollander.
I'm Nick Mason.
And I'm Eric Hayden.
And this is Neon Static.
That's not our intro music. There it is. Listen, I had moved over the thing. We don't have much to share, but we're going to go jump right into straight into the...
And one more time.
I've done this before, I promise. Let's jack right into... You can't say that shit with I'm going to try.
Let's just jack in dry for...
I'm having a hard time, guys.
This is going to be a rough episode.
What do we... we here at Neon and Static are extremely mature.
Yes. Yep.
And
we're adults.
We're adults. We're all adult men. So we had some really good jacking. That's the term that I can barely say with a straight face when I teach the game to people. You can jack out. Jack right out. Oh, it's a tough one.